What's up, guys? Welcome back to Red&Gold. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest once again, Ben Meyerson. How you doing today, Ben?
I'm doing well, Amin. My Miami Heat are doing very, very well. A few weeks ago we were on here. I'd hear all about the Lakers. I don't know. How's that going so far? But no, you know what? I'm doing well. I mean, the 49ers won. Trade deadline was yesterday in the NFL. That's one of my favorite holidays of the year. I'm a big salary cap team building guy. So yeah, it's a good week.
Yeah, well, I did take a couple of weeks off. I haven't done a stream since the Colts game. But I'm
Mm,
back now, better than ever. And I'm glad to be on with you, Ben. But let's
I'm
jump
glad
right
to be
into
here.
it.
I mean.
Let's jump right into it. Starting off, should the 49ers consider trading George Kittle? Now, I know they can't trade him this season, but in the off season, with all his injuries and with his injuries, and he missed majority of last year, and the injuries this season, should the 49ers consider trading George Kittle?
No, actually. I think it's pretty simple, actually. With George Kittle at this point in his career, even if you really wanted to trade him, I don't think you could get the right value back to justify trading George Kittle. And that's kind of the problem I think the 49ers are going to have if they even wanted to go about this, is that with George Kittle, eh, people around the league know his injury history. They know the kind of contract he's on. The information is out on him. And with him, I would say you kind of know what you're getting to an extent, right? I think I wouldn't say it like this, that his best years are behind him, but I certainly don't think he's going to be getting any better at this point in his career. And that's the problem with trying to trade him, is I think unless he were to have a great sort of bounce back season, I don't know if you could get the right value back for a George Kittle trade. The other problem I have with doing this trade is I I think, over these last few games where Kittle's been missing, they ran the ball really well once against a Bears defense that was down bad because they lost Khalil Mack. And I just think I, I think besides that game, they weren't able to run the ball well without Kittle. And in order to really utilize that Shanahan offense to the full extent, get the most out of everything, um, it you gotta have a guy like Kittle who can block in there and who can be a threat in the receiving game as well. And I think that's the thing with Kittle, right? Is even though I know he's not as great as a receiver as some other tight ends out there, the whole package of what George Kittle does is really important for the 49ers success. And now they can do things without him, but I really think this is a team that struggles to find a really an offensive identity without George Kittle. And now, like I said, they did that against Chicago, but I don't know how many teams you can really do that against without Kittle. And I understand he's getting hurt a lot. So I think, drafting a guy like Charlie Warner, who made some really great blocks against the Bears, that helps out a lot. But I think because of where the 49ers find themselves now, you just can't trade George Kittle. If you tried to trade George Kittle, the year after he had his best year, or even after the Super Bowl, I think you could get some decent trade value back for him. But I really don't know how many teams are going to be willing to give up a first round pick and more for Kittle, which is what I would want in a trade. And honestly, I think that's the only thing you can justify to the fan base, because he is so beloved and he is a jersey seller. And, to kind of get back to things all around about, right? The Yorks run this team. They're the ultimate source of power, and they're not going to let go of a guy that's one of their best jersey producers and one of the fan favorites and the guy who makes them a lot of money. So I just think it's just not going to make sense. This is a deal that the 49ers would have had to do either a year into that George Kittle deal or right before they had signed him to that deal. And I just think, if you were going to trade Kittle, you already missed your opportunity. But I don't think it's a bad thing that the 49ers will be stuck with Kittle, even though he does have those injury issues, because like I said, I really think he establishes that offensive identity for this team, and they need him.
Yeah, I don't think they should consider trading George Kittle because we know what George Kittle does in the run game. We know what George Kittle, he's a huge part of our run game. And I was watching that Colts game, right? Majority of Niners fans were watching that Colts game. Dwelly isn't as good as blocking as Kittle is. We already know that. We've
No.
known this. But we saw it on Sunday Night Football. Dooley was getting thrown on his butt on some run plays where Kittle wouldn't do that. Kittle would throw the defender on his butt. Like, that's what Kittle does. He's a huge part of our run game. But my biggest thing with if the Niners should consider trading George Kittle is that, let's say they get some sort of draft pick for George Kittle, a first rounder, second rounder. Can the Niners really capitalize on those first or second round draft picks? That's my biggest issue with trading George Kittle, if they do trade George Kittle, right? Because we already saw what happened with the DeForest Buckner trade. You trade DeForest Buckner, and instead of getting a guy like Tristan Wirfs or CeeDee Lamb,
right,
you go out there and you get Javon Kinlaw, who's out for the season with a knee injury, and who does not produce to the same level or comparatively the same level as DeForest Buckner does. So
yeah.
my
I mean, that's a great point, because this team is constantly, when they trade players or they make moves, they try and usually replace what they have. So imagine the 49ers trade away, let's say just a few years ago, like I was telling you, I mean, they trade him away, right? Then they decide, I'm trying to think. Oh, Noah Fant, right? He was one of the last tight ends who was kind of picked at the end of the first round. He's someone that the 49ers could have drafted in the last few years. What if the offseason that Fant gets drafted, we lost Amin, everybody. Well, I'm taking over. This is my show. Everybody, you wanna go contribute to my college fund? No, I'm kidding. We'll wait for Amin here in a second. I don't know where he is. I'm taking over though. How's everyone's days going? We lost Amin, but he'll be back. But I will say this, I got 1,000 subscribers here. Go subscribe to my channel. If you actually do want to help out my college fund, right? Oh, hey, there's a meme.
Damn, I was like, wait. I was just sitting here listening to you, and then it automatically kicked me out. I was like, wait. What's up with that?
Oh yeah, but let's keep talking about George Kittle. So my point that I was saying was, you talked about Javon Kinlaw. The 49ers trying to replace him for DeForest Buckner. What if they tried to do the same with a Noah Fant type, right? Someone like that who's not as good as George Kittle, obviously. Would we really have trusted them to develop a guy like that, or even draft the right tight end? I just think the problem is that tight end is such a unique position in the NFL, where there's so few guys for so many spots. And the difference between the best 3 guys in the league and just an average starter, that disparity is bigger than almost any other position in the league. And that's why a guy like George Kittle is so valuable at his position, even if he's constantly getting injured, right? Is because to have one of those difference makers at that position like Kittle, you can only find so many of those guys, right? So, it's just tough.
There's not that many tight ends, especially in the draft, that you can get that bring the same thing that Kittle brings to the table.
I mean,
much to the table. Like, you can find a guy like Kyle Pitts, right? Not like a guy like physically as gifted as Kyle Pitts, but you can find a pass catching tight end. We've seen T.J. Hawkins and we've seen Noah Fant, but you can't find that many tight ends that can block as well as George Kittle. If they do go and decide, if we do trade George Kittle, hypothetically, you're not gonna get a guy that can block as good as George Kittle. And let's say they try to get another position instead of George Kittle, right? Mm-hmm. How confident are you that they can hit on that? Because I'm not confident they can hit on that. Just look at the first round. Solomon Thomas, not on the team. Reuben Foster, not on the team. 2018, they drafted. I forgot who they did. 2018.
Yeah. They have a bad track record. But what if they decided to do a player-for-player Kittle trade, right? Do you think there's any sort of player-for-player deal where you think the 49ers could get good value back? Because with George Kittle's problems, right? And I can see you thinking about it right now in your head. It's like you're only going to get players back that have other issues, that you're taking on. You're giving away your problems to deal with another team's problems. With a guy like Kittle, I just don't want to do that kind of deal. So I don't think any of it is, really makes sense. And like Pinor kind of said with the stock value, I would argue that Kittle's stock value isn't at its highest right now. That's why I'm saying we shouldn't trade him. It's because 3 years ago, that stock is through the roof, right? That's just not going to happen this offseason.
Having most receiving yards from a tight end all time, that stuff. But even that, right? Like with Kittle, even if you don't, let's say they get their teams offer them a draft picks, right? Like I already said, you don't know how often they hit on draft picks. We've seen that they don't have a great track record of hitting on their first round draft picks. But let's say they have a team gives a player are you going to get the right value for Kittle? Because Kittle, with his injuries, with his contract, what other team in the league is necessarily going to give up a star player for George Kittle? Did the 49ers feel like, you know what, we can pull the trigger we get this star player and we'll give you George Kittle? I don't know if they're necessarily going to get the right value if they do
No.
trade George Kittle. I don't even know if a team would give them, one of their star players if they don't offer them draft picks. So that's some of my concerns if they were to consider trading for Kittle.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I
Trading
think the only guy who's come out in the draft who is more talented than George Kittle recently is Kyle Pitts. And Kyle Pitts is as talented as they come. And quite honestly, that is one of the only guys right now I would consider doing a 1-for-1 Kittle trade with, at least at the position. Obviously, you'd like to trade for Travis Kelce or Darren Waller maybe, but I also don't know if those teams would do a 1-for-1 trade with those guys. Like Bay Area Baller saying Pitts, I mean, he's a special
Pitts is special,
player.
right? But the thing about the Niners is that with Pitts, he's a great pass catcher. Is he as good as Kittle as run blocking?
But I mean, I think that's where people get lost on Pitts there. That's the issue, is that people look over it because Kyle Pitts is such a talented pass catcher. People underappreciate his blocking. And I think if you actually go back and look at his blocking, even going back to Florida, he's worthy of being a first-round tight end for blocking alone. Like, this guy is an all-world receiver and a great blocker. So I really think Pitts is that potential next future generation guy. And I think, just because his blocking isn't out of this world doesn't mean he's bad. He's actually very, very good at blocking. And that's what people, he's misunderstood a little bit. He's so great in the receiving game. He gets overlooked by almost everyone as a blocker. So I just but kind of getting back to the point is that's the only all-around tight end I would consider taking over Kittle right now. And the only reason I would really, really want Pitts over Kittle right now is because Pitts is younger and he's probably going to stay healthier over the next 5 years. That's the only reason you're going with a guy like Pitts over Kittle. Other than that, I really don't know what trade you could reasonably make for George.
I understand it from that point of view, right? Because Kyle Pitts, talented, he's healthy,
cheaper
right
at the position.
Cheaper at the position, right? But my thing is that Pitts, I'm not gonna deny that I'm not gonna deny that he's not good at pass blocking, but is he as good as Kittle at pass run blocking?
He's not as good as Kittle, but I would argue he's so much better than a pass catcher, Amin, that he makes up for the difference. I think Pitts is that special.
I understand that he's good at pass. I mean, receiving tight end, but with the Niners, they're not a pass first team, right? For a team the Chiefs, right? They have Travis Kelce. They don't need Kyle Pitts, but Travis Kelce, he's a really good pass catching tight end. With Kittle, we don't necessarily use him as how the Chiefs use Travis Kelce. We use him as a run blocker. We use him in the run game, right? So that's the thing, right? If we're a pass first team, if we want to go trade Kittle for Pitts, I would do it any day of the week, but we're not. We're a run first team, right? So because we are a run first team, would I rather have Kittle blocking for us in the run game, or would I have Kyle Pitts blocking for us in the run game? I would rather have Kittle blocking for us in the run game, just because the way we utilize Kittle, it just benefits us more the way we would utilize Kittle and how much he helps us in the run game, where Pitts isn't as good as blocking as Kittle.
Yeah, but you have to also realize, is that the way they would use Kyle Pitts, they would use him in a way that they wouldn't even imagine using George Kittle in, because he's that versatile. He is that guy who can line up in line in the backfield, out wide as this X receiver. I'm just a huge Kyle Pitts guy.
I know, you from Florida, you're at FSU, but You probably watch a lot of.
Oh, I've seen Kyle Pitts catch a lot of touchdowns. I wasn't happy to see all those touchdowns caught, but I've seen a lot of them for sure.
All right, well, moving on to the next topic. Is Deebo Samuel a top 10 wide receiver? Deebo Samuel's having an amazing year this year. I remember in the offseason, I was like, bro, it still hurts that the Niners drafted Deebo Samuel out of all people over DK Metcalf and AJ Brown and Terry McLaurin. It makes no sense. But this year, Deebo Samuel, did Deebo Samuel hear what I said? Did Deebo Samuel hear what all the Niners fans who criticized him said? Because right now, he's popping off. He's second in the league in receiving yards, has 4 touchdowns, I think. He is popping off this year. He's on track to have over 1,900 yards, receiving yards this year. Is Deebo Samuel a top 10 receiver?
I I mean, I okay. I mean, I heard Vish say this, so I'm not gonna pretend like I haven't heard it before. But this is my genuine feeling: is that I don't think he's a top 10 pure wide receiver, but I think he's a top 10 player at the wide receiver position. Just like I think Tyreek Hill is the best player at wide receiver, but I think Devontae Adams is a better receiver. There's a distinction, really.
Dude, Vish said that on Mondays when Vish kind of reiterated that. I respect it. I respect it.
I mean, listen, this is the you get this is an opinion that this is an opinion I've had going back to prior to the season. Deebo Samuel is a better weapon than he's a wide receiver, obviously. And then if you look at it from that perspective, if you look at it from your Tyreek Hills, right? You're just freaky athletes who aren't the most polished receivers necessarily. Yeah, he's a top 10 guy, but is he a top 10 receiver? No, I think there's much more nuanced receivers. There's receivers who are much better route runners. There's who are better with drops. Like there are more guys. There are guys who are better and more nuanced at the position. But I don't think there's 10 wide receivers I would want before I would want Deebo Samuel. If that makes sense.
Well, as of this year, right? I'm basing it off the stats, right? Because obviously, as of this year, I'm not going to rank Deebo Samuel second in the league, right? I'm not going to rank him over DeAndre Hopkins or Devontae Adams just because he has more receiving yards. No way, right? But do I think Deebo Samuel's a top 10 receiver this year? Yeah. He has 891 yards this year, 44 receptions, 4 touchdowns. Now, you could look at the drops, but his quarterback play isn't that good. Jimmy Garoppolo, we all admit Jimmy Garoppolo isn't the best quarterback. His quarterback play isn't that great.
Well, and I mean, I will throw this out there too. To catch a lot of balls, you have to have a lot of targets, and with more targets, there's going to be more drops. Like it just is what it is. You get the ball more, you're going to have more drops.
Yep, and like Rob said, Deebo is number one in yards after catch in the NFL.
He's the best YAC receiver.
Right.
If
Yeah,
not
but
one of the
just
top
based
2 or
off this,
3.
just for this specific season, do I think Deebo Samuel is a top 10 wide receiver? Now, if we're just basing it off pure wide receiver, obviously Deebo Samuel isn't a pure wide receiver because the Niners use him in way more ways than as a pure wide receiver. But do I think as of this year, Deebo Samuel is a top 10 receiver? Yeah, because he's second in the league in receiving yards. He's first in yards after catch, and his quarterback play isn't that great, and he's still second in the league in receiving yards. Deebo Samuel, if you just look at the numbers, he is top 10 this year. Now, last year, would I say he's top 10? No, right? Because last year he didn't have the stats. He was injured majority of the year. But this year, do I think he is? Yeah, especially also because some of those guys like last year, right? You could put guys like Keenan Allen up there, or you could put Allen Robinson last year. Those guys, some people had them in their top 10 conversation. Do I think Keenan Allen's a better receiver? Yeah, but as of this year, is Keenan Allen outperforming Deebo Samuel? No, but I think specifically for this year, I think Deebo Samuel is a top 10 receiver.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I'm no arguments here, man.
Well, this happened yesterday, so it's not breaking news. I just put it as breaking news because I did not get a chance to discuss it yesterday. But the 49ers did trade for D-end Charles Omenihu, if I said that correctly, Omenihu, defensive end.
Great pronunciation on your part, Amin. I wouldn't have even gotten close, honestly.
What was your thoughts when you heard this news? What was your reaction? Because obviously we heard Kyle Shanahan say that he isn't going to make a trade. So what was your reaction when you heard about this trade?
Well, Kyle Moore said that he wasn't going to make like a significant trade, which I mean, this isn't a significant trade, so Kyle didn't lie. It was a 6th-round pick. The way I see this is honestly the 49ers should probably be better spending a 6th-round pick on this guy than they are on. I mean, yeah, Elijah Mitchell is a good pick, but I just think with the 49ers in general, they need pass rush help. They need someone opposite Nick Bosa. Quietly, they really haven't had anyone who's gotten great production there. Samson Ebukam got a sack. Besides that, he played an awful game, honestly, outside of that sack at the end of the game. And then even with D Ford, he's been hurt and he's been out. And I think with Omenihu, he can be that. He's going to be that like inside outside guy. I heard him described as, I heard Grant describe him as Eric Armstead's little brother, right? Because he can do very similar things, but his height, weight, speed aren't quite what Eric Armstead are, right? He's a 6'5", 280 guy, but he's been getting pressure at the quarterback this year, even though he hasn't had a sack, right? 16 total pressures, only like 5 or 6 games. And then if you go back to his last 2 seasons where he did play full games, 32 pressures each season. So if he's not getting better, he's at least staying the same. And this is a young 24-year-old pass rusher. So listen, he's under cost control for the next 2 years. He's basically cost the 49ers absolutely next to nothing. So if he can come and provide some depth and, you know, allow Eric Armstead to play more inside, right, where the 49ers want him to play and where 49ers fans should want him to play, I just think that's good news for everybody. And I really think he's gonna, I don't think he's gonna be like the biggest trade in the world, but I think he's a nice depth guy and he could be one of those important players that you like to rotate along your defensive line because, just with defensive lines, obviously those players get hurt very easily, but also you don't want those guys in for every single snap of every single game. So this is just another guy that the 49ers can bring in and rotate because they do have injuries at that spot. And they really don't have an established edge guy outside of Nick Bosa right now. I think that was kind of the thought here. And the hope is that he plays more and more. And, this is a developmental guy. They have Chris Kusarek, of course. So this is just a guy they're going to want to develop. And I think he has a nice bull rush. I've seen that from him, little clips here on Twitter. But, besides that, he's a nice player, like a 6th-round pick. Like this isn't a groundbreaking trade by any means, but it's a nice little trade.
Yeah, but I'm not mad at the trade, right? Because it obviously adds depth to the D-line, which the Niners are one of the most teams that deal with the most injuries pretty much every year. So I'm not mad at it because, right, if a guy like Samson Ebukam goes down or a guy like Eric Armstead goes down.
Well, and now that Kinlaw's down, and that's where this guy's going to come invaluable, right? A Menahu is because what you're dealing with right now is you want Eric Armstead to play more inside, right, rather than outside, but you couldn't really do that because of Kinlaw. Now that's not as much of an issue. So should be doing your taxes, but I think this is a smart move in terms of the depth, in terms of the rotation of the line. This just makes things easier for Chris Kusarek and D'Amico Ryans. And if this is a guy who can get consistent pressure, then that's great news for the 49ers because they haven't been able to find that outside of Nick Bosa on the edge.
And I don't like Eric Armstead on the edge whatsoever because
you just don't want to play him there.
You don't want to play him there. You just don't. So if he can play on the edge and he can create pressure, then I'm fine with it. Because I'd rather have Eric Armstead at D tackle than at defensive end because he's really not that good at defensive end. But moving on, this was a groundbreaking trade. The
Rams it was.
For Von Miller. So let's talk about it. How does the Von Miller trade affect the division? Because we obviously know what Von Miller brings to the table. He's still good. I don't care what anybody says. He's still good. Is he Aaron Donald type level good? But he's still a good player. He's still a really good player. 4.5 sacks on the season. And it's still scary to think Von Miller, Aaron Donald on the same defensive line. How are you going to stop that? Like, how are you going to stop Aaron Donald and Von Miller on the same defensive line?
Yeah, with Daniel Brunskill and Mike McGlinchey, apparently. That's going to be the answer to that, obviously. No, listen, Von Miller, this is a great trade for the Rams, honestly. I don't know how else to say it. Listen, did they give up a lot? Did they give up a lot for him? Yeah, but I think considering how much they're paying him, and the fact that this is their Super Bowl window, this is their year to win it, they're going for it. Why not? I think this is a move that the 49ers would never make in a million years, even if they, had the opportunity to make this kind of move. But for the division, this doesn't change much. If anything, this affects the Cardinals more than it affects the 49ers, right? I don't think the 49ers were beating the Rams anyways. Now I definitely don't think the 49ers are beating the Rams. So 2 scheduled losses for the rest of the season, I guess. But outside of that, I don't think this affects the division greatly. I think if anything, it's just, man, this puts the Rams over the edge in my opinion. And this is the type of move that I still think people are underrating because people think Von Miller is washed or maybe a little bit not quite himself. I'm sorry, you haven't been watching Von Miller lately. This year's Von Miller is just as ferocious as last year's or the year before that or even the year before that. He's still producing at that kind of level. And if they're getting, if they're getting 70% of Von Miller, it's still freaking awesome. And he's still going to kick butt.
And you
I
already
think
have
they're
Aaron
getting
Donald at defensive line, right? So Aaron Donald's already a
yeah,
game changer on it. Any
but
defensive line
but
you put Aaron Donald on, he's a game changer. Add Von Miller to the equation. You
oh,
might
it's
get, like you
crazy.
said, 70% Von Miller.
And I
First
don't
round
think they're
pick
getting
defensive line.
70. And I don't think they're getting 70% Von Miller. I think they're getting 90 to
Yeah.
95% Von Miller. I mean, listen, I'm not going to say he's the exact same guy who won the Super Bowl, 6 years ago now, but I mean, listen, okay, Von Miller's been hurt recently, but if
Yeah.
Von Miller's is healthy for
Yeah.
the playoffs for the Rams, they're winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like I don't care, it doesn't matter. And the Rams are also paying him less than $1 million this year. Like this is first of all, I think there were some people that had the notion that like, oh, you know, this is a steal. The Rams how are they working the salary cap? Well, what happened was the Rams or the Broncos
Broncos had
said
to pay
to them,
majority of the salary, 9 million, I think. 9 million. They had to pay majority of the salary for
yeah,
him.
and the point is that they got creative with it, right? The Broncos did do them a huge favor, but what people aren't understanding is that if the Broncos didn't do this, the most they could have gotten out of Von Miller would have been a fifth-round pick, because with compensatory picks, because of the certain language in his contract, the way it's set up for Von Miller, the most they would have gotten was a fifth. So I anticipate that if you knew what was going on between, the Broncos phones, that's what the main offer they would have been getting for Von Miller without them taking on the contract, right? A fifth round pick. That would be the maximum. But the second you start to if you're the Broncos, you say to yourselves, hey, we know there are teams like the Rams and a bunch of other teams who are contenders, right? Who have zero salary cap, who need Von Miller desperately and are trying to win this season and don't care about the future. They'll trade us something he's not worth right now, because Von Miller was not worth a second and a third. He was worth a fifth round pick, because that's what the Broncos would have gotten no matter what. So honestly, the Broncos, I mean, are they doing the Rams a favor? I don't think so. I think the Rams are doing the Broncos a favor, because if they didn't get this sort of deal out of Von Miller, that was the most they were getting. So I really think with this Von Miller situation, the Rams were one of the only teams who could have pulled this off. With their salary cap situation, with how creative their front offices, they were really the only ones willing to pull off this kind of deal. And I'm just sitting back here like, dang, I wish the 49ers had a strong front office and organization, because they don't. And
But either
yeah,
way, they wouldn't have made the trade for Von Miller, right? Because
no,
this team isn't like the Rams. I understand why they made the trade, because they're trying to win this year.
right.
That's why they go out and you get a player like Von Miller. Where the Niners, they're not in it to win this year, right? So they
But
go get
I
Charles
mean,
Menahue to add depth, right? They
even
don't
if
get
they were in it to win it, they wouldn't make this Von Miller move. I mean, even if this was 2019 and they didn't have D Ford, I don't think they make this type of move, because this isn't just what this front office does.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, this was a great move for the Rams, right? Because they're trying to win it this year. And if you have a guy like Von Miller on that defensive line, that automatically improves the defense in a major way. Von Miller and Aaron Donald on the same defensive line. Like I said before, it's a great defensive line. Add Von Miller to the equation.
I mean, here's the other thing
And
with the
also
Rams, right?
Jalen Ramsey, like we're
Oh,
forgetting
Jalen
Jalen
Ramsey
Ramsey.
is.
But like you don't throw on the side of wherever side Jalen Ramsey's coming, you don't throw to that side of the field. Because likely it's gonna be incomplete or it's gonna be an interception. You don't throw that side. You already have one side of the field covered off. Add Von Miller to that defense is going to improve a lot. But this is a great move for the Rams. I think it's a greater move but I mean, for like you said, for the cap situation, the Broncos have probably ended up getting a fifth round pick. So it's a win-win for both teams, right? It's a win-win for both teams, because both teams get greater value than they were. They both teams get value for it.
And I mean, quite honestly, with the Rams, I think there's a huge misunderstanding with them. There are people who think that they don't care about the draft, right? That's all you hear, Amin, right? Anytime the Rams make this sort of trade, that's not true. Actually, the Rams get more compensatory picks than any other front office in the league in the past 2 to 3 years. What they've been doing is they also trade down picks more than anyone else. So if you look at the past 3 drafts for them, they've had like 8 or 9 picks in every single draft, but they trade away all their first round picks.
Look at this year, they traded with the Niners for Jason, and they got 2 more fourth rounders, right? Like they're. But one thing I will say about the Rams is like the Rams are smart. Their front office is smart as hell. Like the Rams, what they do? Look at their core. Cooper Kupp, is he a first round draft pick? No, they drafted him in the later rounds. Star player for them. Robert Woods, the guy they picked up in free agency. Matthew Stafford, the guy that they traded for. They trade some of their first and second rounders for proven quality players, right? Like you look at Seattle, they traded for Jamal Adams. They're not getting the same value
Yeah.
as they thought they would for Jamal Adams. Where you look at the Rams, they're trading for guys like Jalen Ramsey. It's working out well for them. Nobody's criticizing them. Oh, you traded your first round picks for Jalen Ramsey because Jalen Ramsey is balling out. He's playing exceptional. He's the best corner in the league, right? So nobody has an issue against that. Cooper Kupp, second round draft pick. They trade their first rounders, but majority of their core are come through late draft picks. They know how to develop their guys,
Or
and
just
they
mid
go and
mid
trade for
picks,
proven
really.
players. And they go out and they trade for proven players.
Yeah.
Well, moving on to the next topic. Can the offense continue to have the same success?
I would say probably. I don't know. I really think this is up to Kyle Shanahan. I think the problem with this season so far is the unwillingness to commit to the run, and not just commit to the run, but commit to runs that are successful for you, down in and down out. Right. I think so much early in the season they tried to play Shanahan's offense more than they tried to play the 49ers players the best way they should be playing them. And I think what they did against Chicago was a good example of them playing to their players' strengths, actually, allowing Elijah Mitchell to work in open space like you did, right? And getting Deebo, obviously, the way you've been involving him every game. But I think the 49ers can continue the success. They get George Kittle back and he plays for them, right? I'm not saying they need the best George Kittle possible, but what they need is George Kittle to play every game for them. And if George Kittle plays the rest of the season, yeah, I think this offense can have the same success. If not, maybe get a little better. But I think if you look at the advanced analytics, right, it's a little misleading with the 49ers right now. They rank 7th in DVOA
Yeah,
offensively. They're not the 7th best
yeah.
offense in the NFL.
Here's what I will say though, right? Like you said, you brought up George Kittle, right? I mean, we had George Kittle the first couple of weeks. The offense didn't really look good. I mean, the Detroit game, obviously, right? We look at the Detroit game. Detroit sucks. They're 0-8. We beat Detroit. We blew the brakes off Detroit because they're the Detroit Lions. They've been crap for 30 years now. So we already know we beat the Detroit Lions. But outside that, like, we had the Eagles. We barely beat the Eagles. We scored like 17 on them. We beat them by 7, 6. Like, our
Yeah,
team,
but
our offense has
he's
been struggling.
helping you a
Even
lot
with
in
George
that
Kittle.
Colts game. I mean, he's helping you a lot in that Colts game where you missed him a lot. And I think besides this Bears game, they just haven't been able to run the ball. That's the issue, right? I think before they were unwilling to run the ball. Now they're willing to run the ball, but I'm not sure they have the personnel all the time to do it. So, without Kittle, I'm not sure how well they can run the ball. But if they're willing to run the ball and they have George Kittle back, that's going to make for some great offensive success. So, yeah, and it looks like, I mean, we'll talk about the game upcoming this week. We'll talk about the game this week, but I think the offense can definitely continue their success. The Cardinals are going to have a lot of injuries, though, for sure. So
The offense could definitely replicate.
I don't wear dad shoes. Come on. I don't
The
appreciate
Niners
that.
offense could definitely have the same success, right? But it honestly all depends on the run game, because you can't rely on Jimmy Garoppolo to you can't rely on Jimmy Garoppolo. You can't rely on Jimmy Garoppolo's arm, right? If the
I
Niners,
don't think this offense is designed to rely on the passing game, right? They're designed to build off the run.
yeah, they're designed to blow off the run. I was like, what do you mean they rely on the passing game, bro? Like you don't rely on Jimmy
No,
Garoppolo.
I mean what I said. I think you heard me wrong. What I said was they can't rely on the passing game.
I was just making sure. I'm like, bro, what you mean they rely on Jimmy Garoppolo? But they rely on the run game a lot. That's what they do. You look at 2019,
Yeah.
it wasn't Jimmy. The only one game that I'll give Jimmy Garoppolo his props. 2 games I'll give Jimmy Garoppolo his props. Thursday Night Football against the Arizona Cardinals, we threw for 4 touchdowns, and the Saints game in the Superdome. But even the Saints game in the Superdome, we ran the football pretty darn well, right? So when we run the football well, majority of the time we win football games. When we run the football and we can score by running, by getting. What do you mean? Yeah. Damn. All right, Waruda. But when we can run the ball well, majority of the time we win football games. That's just what it is. We run the ball well, majority of the time we win football games. The Niners can definitely replicate that success. But if George Kittle comes back and he can run block well and he gives us at least 60%, let's say 60%, then maybe we can replicate the same success. But Kyle really has to be willing to commit to the run. I don't know how much he's going to be willing to commit to the run. If Kyle is willing to commit to the run and he's willing to stick with the run, then yeah, with Kittle there, yeah, the offense could have similar success, but if he's not willing to commit to the run, then nah, I don't think the offense can have the same success. But it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see because obviously we scored 34 on a Bears team that's really not that good. A Bears defense without Khalil Mack, right?
Without Khalil Mack,
Without
right?
Khalil
That's the
Mack,
tough
right? So
part.
let's say
Yeah.
Khalil Mack was there, it could probably been a whole different story. I really
Mhm.
the what will be the test for me is like how well can they go up against the Cardinals? How well can they go up against the Rams, right? Can they
Rams,
run
yeah.
ball? Can they run the ball efficiently against the Rams? Can they run the ball efficiently against the Arizona Cardinals? Can the offense be productive against those two defenses who are really
Wait,
good
wait.
defenses?
I mean, you're telling me that you're not worried about the Jacksonville Jaguars who they play the week after? Come on, you don't want to overlook opponents like that. I mean, come on, that's it's called a trap game, right? You don't want to get caught in that.
The Jaguars really. The Jaguars haven't won a game in the United States of America for almost like the iPhone 12 wasn't even out the last time the Jaguars won a game in the United States. Okay, like that's how long ago it was. The Jaguars.
But I mean, I'll be there in a few weeks. I'll be in Jacksonville, so that should be fun.
It's not Jacksonville anymore, bro. It's not
I
Jacksonville.
said
Okay,
I,
I'm not
I said
overlooking the
Jacksonville.
Jaguars. It's not
I said,
Jacksonville anymore.
but I said I'm gonna be there in person. I mean, so it should be a good game. And I just got my seats in, and I found out I'm gonna be right behind the 49ers bench. So hopefully I'll be close enough to hear what Kyle and Jimmy are talking about.
And that's great, man. Glad you're willing to go. But it'll be a good game. I'll go two ways. The Niners blow out the Jaguars if that's your definition of a good game. Be like 30 to 12, 30 to 6. If that's your definition of a good game, I hope you enjoy.
Maybe it's the Trey Lance debut. Who knows? Who
Who knows, man?
knows?
If Jimmy loses
Who
the Cardinals,
knows?
if Jimmy loses the Rams, Trey Lance versus Trevor Lawrence, third overall pick versus first overall pick. Ooh, that's gonna be
I'm eyeing
interesting.
it. I'm eyeing it.
But 49ers versus Cardinals, what are some of your keys to the game?
I would say this is going to be a really confusing game, honestly, because we don't even know who's going to be available. And I'm checking Twitter as we're going because it looks like some Cardinals are being ruled out as we speak. I believe AJ Green. So AJ Green will not play this weekend. It looks like. Yeah, there's going to be some issues for the Cardinals this weekend. So I think the key for the 49ers in terms of victory is to be able to not only sustain the offense, right? I mean, but they need to dominate with their offense on Sunday.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm very fearful of the Cardinals offense with Colt McCoy, right? But it's because I think if you let the Cardinals hold the ball for too long and you allow them to play possession, I think they could win this game because they're a better team. So you don't want to get caught in that trap. And yeah, that's kind of my biggest thing for this game, really, is you want to be able to play ball control this game and just not allow the Cardinals to even touch the ball. And then your hope is that you get a bunch of 3-and-outs or hopefully many of them from the Cardinals, and you're able to take advantage of that. Maybe you get a turnover. But I don't think this game is going to come down to turnovers unless Jimmy makes it about turnovers, right? That's really the biggest worry for me is that Jimmy could throw this game away, right? But I don't think he will because I think this Cardinals team is so bad that like I think if you just run the ball well enough with Kyle's system and work the intermediate game, and maybe they get a little more, involved at the line of scrimmage with the passing game, you should be able to play, like I said, ball control, win this game easy. I don't think this is a hard outing unless you start making mistakes. Then this becomes a really tough game for the 49ers. But as they sit right now, if they don't commit turnovers, yeah, it could be really good. And is Jeff Wilson Jr. back? So I just saw that in the comments. He's not back officially yet. His practice window's opened up this week. He won't be playing probably this week.
Robbie Gould
Probably
also.
net. Yeah, Robbie Gould.
Those guys are probably going to suit up for Sunday. Jeff Wilson Jr.
Yeah, Jeff Wilson Jr. probably won't suit up for this Sunday. Maybe not even next Sunday. It could be a few weeks for him.
Yeah. Well, my biggest key to the game is the Niners want to win this game. So I'm not worried about the defense. So I think the defense will do fine, especially if Kyler Murray doesn't play. Obviously, I don't think the Cardinals are going to go scoreless. I don't think they're going to score 0 points or something like that. I think the Cardinals are still going to be able to score. But my biggest key to the game, if the Niners really want to win this game, is limit turnovers and run the football well. If the Niners don't run the football, they don't win football games. That's just what it is. You can't rely on Jimmy Garoppolo's arm to win you football games. You can. Like, we know with Russell Wilson, yeah, you can rely on Russell Wilson's arm to win you football games because we've seen it before in the past. Russell Wilson can you win you football games. His offensive line is bad. His offensive line was bad for a couple of years. He didn't have that many good receivers, and he could still win you football games. Where Jimmy Garoppolo, you can't rely on Jimmy Garoppolo's arm to win you football games. If the Niners really want to win this game, they're going to have to run the football effectively. If they can't run the football effectively and efficiently, they're not going to be able to win this game.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. Right there with you.
Well, let's
So,
jump into score predictions.
oh,
Let's score predictions. We got to finish off with the score predictions, What are your score predictions for this game?
23-17 49ers.
Dang. All right. I'm going to go with 21-13. I see the Niners win this one. I see the Niners pull
But
it out.
it's going to be closer than people think, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's going to be closer, right? But I still think if Colt McCoy plays as he is expected to play, we don't know about Kyler Murray and his whole situation. If Kyler Murray plays, then that's probably most likely it could go either way, but most likely the Cardinals aren't going to win it if Kyler Murray plays, even with their injuries. If Kyler Murray plays, most likely they are going to win. But if Kyler Murray doesn't play, as it looks like he didn't practice today, so if he does not play and Colt McCoy is playing, then I think the Niners do get this W 21-13.
Yeah, I'd be totally cool with that.
Well, Zark Muckerberg, I'm glad you asked. I like the name. Well, if you haven't already subscribed to Ben's channel, the link is in the description. Follow him on Twitter. The link is also in the description. I put it all there. Go check it out.
And go on my Twitter right now because I have a great article out about Brandon Ayuk. Actually, I broke down what's been going on with them. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that in a second, but I full Brandon Ayuk breakdown, everything you want to know relating to why Brandon Ayuk's been in this slump, what they've been saying about him, and why I think they can still do even better after this great game he had.
Yeah, well, go check out Ben's channel. I appreciate everybody who's watching. I got the thanks for watching down below. I had to put it up as a banner. I appreciate everybody watching. 49er Minded was in there. Go check out his channel if you haven't already. Pinor was in there. Zark Muckerberg was in there. We got a bunch of people in there. Barry a Baller. I appreciate everybody who was in the chat. Everybody who's supporting. If you haven't already, go subscribe to my channel. Go like the
absolutely.
video. And me and Ben will be back next Wednesday. Hopefully the Niners get a W this Sunday.
Hopefully.
Go Niners, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Peace.
All right. Peace out, everyone.